In the heart of the Milky Way's third quadrant, on the glimmering dais of the Galactic Conclave, the laughter rolled like thunder across marble walls. Not the friendly kind. This was derision. Cruel. High Speaker Traugr of the Ventari Dominion, a 10-foot serpent humanoid hybrid with translucent scales and a voice like vibrating glass, gestured at the central display where a holographic image rotated lazily, a Terran military uniform. "Behold," he said, his voice thick with venomous amusement, "the species that called themselves humanity." The delegates chuckled, clicked, or hissed depending on their biology. "They submitted a request," Traugr continued, "to join our sacred circle. They offered trade, cooperation, peace." His eyes narrowed, smirking. "And cultural exchange. They sent us music, my friends." The chamber howled. Dignitaries collapsed in laughter. The Zentari ambassadors simulated vomiting. A few even jeered directly into the feed, knowing the Terrans could see. Back on Earth, the human delegation, 10 diplomats and observers packed into a single borrowed freighter, watched it all on the bridge screen in tight, smoldering silence. Ambassador Lena Chow didn't flinch. She leaned forward. "They're laughing," said Lieutenant Ramos, a cybernetics officer temporarily assigned to the delegation. "Let them," Chow replied. The youngest of them, Dr. Elias Grant, shifted nervously. "They mocked our genetics, our tech, our languages. They even called our planet a biological trash world. Shouldn't we respond?" Chow's voice remained even. "We will. Just not yet." "Why not?" She smiled faintly. "Because they just made their last mistake. Before the joke." In truth, the Galactic Council didn't always know humans existed. The Milky Way was vast, and humanity had only recently begun poking into the void with their first FTL engines. They didn't fight anyone. Didn't provoke wars. They just showed up. Quiet. Curious. And far, far more patient than anyone expected. Other species had joined the Council with fanfare, military might, spectacular technologies, promises of interstellar goods. Earth arrived with unassuming science vessels, a few thousand years of philosophy, and an unsettling ability to listen more than they spoke. That scared no one. They were the underdog. The runt. A 1,000-year-old joke in a 10,000-year-old empire. And they played that part well, for a while. Until someone pushed too far. The first cut. It started with the mining colony on Varnix, 12. Officially disputed territory, it was actually an unclaimed backwater rock. Human settlers had legally purchased drilling rights from a smaller trading syndicate. Nothing shady. Nothing hidden. But when the Sakari war clans noticed Terran flags on a moon they once used as a weapons dump, they didn't negotiate. They dropped in hard, smashed habitats, and laughed as they forced the survivors to sign over ownership at gunpoint. 37 civilians died. Among them were children. The Council ruled it as a regrettable misunderstanding. The humans were told to accept the Salkari's apology, a 5-minute video transmission in which the warlord burped. No compensation. No punishment. Earth swallowed its rage. Publicly. But in the shadows something else stirred. The men they forgot existed. 6 months after the Varnix incident, a Sakari dreadnought exploded in dry dock over the moon of Glissa Prime. No survivors. At first, no one claimed responsibility. Until a fragment of the dreadnought was recovered. Welded onto it were 4 small words etched in scorched steel. "We remember Varnix." The Council scrambled. They interrogated humans. Scanned their systems. Accused them of terrorism. But Earth's leadership simply looked confused. "Are you sure it was us?" Chow asked sweetly. "Our freighters don't even carry torpedoes. Perhaps it was sabotage? Sakari weapons tend to be unstable." The other species agreed. Yes, must have been faulty engineering. And the joke rolled on. The quiet architects. What the Council didn't understand, what they still failed to grasp, was that humans didn't operate like anyone else. They didn't posture. They didn't broadcast strength. They studied. They learned. And above all, they adapted. Every insult became a case study. Every attack became a data point. Earth scientists quietly developed anti-fusion dampeners that could blind the sensors of enemy dreadnoughts. Military tacticians built combat AIs trained not by simulations but by real-world analysis of interspecies war footage. Their Black Ops network studied alien biology, not for diplomacy but for weakness. One operative, codenamed Scythe, famously uploaded a viral speech into a Tharkan military parade that made half the command structure resign in shame. His face was never seen. His location never found. And still the Council laughed. Until the day they stopped. The first real fight. It came when the Agrathi Federation, a council ally, attacked a human convoy in disputed space. They wanted to teach the monkeys a lesson. A full assault fleet descended on what they thought were unarmed freighters. But the Terrans had been busy. The freighters weren't ships. They were bait. Within minutes, 12 black war cruisers dropped from slipspace in formation tighter than any council species could pull off. Human vessels moved like predators, silent, fast, precise. They didn't just disable the Agrathi. They dismantled them. Every ship, every captain, gone. In 37 minutes, the Agrathi fleet was reduced to floating metal. Then, as the wreckage cooled, the Terrans transmitted a single message to the council. You may stop laughing now. The joke ends. The reaction was immediate. Fear spread faster than light. Species that once mocked humans now scrambled to erase old broadcasts. Memes disappeared. Archived jokes vanished from data nets. Suddenly, Earth was getting formal apologies. Requests for trade. Peace overtures. But Earth didn't respond. Not yet. Ambassador Chow, now promoted to Earth's High Envoy, gave a press statement broadcast across all major systems. Humanity did not come to conquer, she said. We came to contribute. We offered peace. She looked straight into the camera. You showed us your true selves, and so we adapted. You made us into what you feared most. Her final words froze across the galaxy. We were the joke. But now, we're the lesson. The galaxy froze. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a single species had turned the entire council's laughter into silence. Not fear, dread. Terran warships no longer needed to prove themselves. Their absence in council disputes was noticed more than their presence ever was. Earth no longer sent envoys to request meetings, they summoned them. And when humanity summoned, others answered. Because no one wanted to be the next example. No one wanted to be Varnixed. The shadows between stars. While most species relied on hierarchy and ceremony, Earth had quietly developed something far more dangerous than ships. Independent cells. No central command. No predictable deployments. Terran Black Ops units, codenamed Phantoms, had one rule. Speak softly. Strike surgically. Vanish completely. Rumors spread of invisible boarding pods, undetectable drones, and strike teams capable of destabilizing entire planetary governments in under 72 hours. One such whisper told of a gas giant refinery owned by the elite Vinmari syndicate that mysteriously overloaded, despite having 12 redundant safeguards. The only clue? A Terran chess knight etched into a scrap of hull drifting in the storm clouds. No official claim. Just the message. The Council's intelligence agency, the Core Analysis Bureau, issued a rare advisory to all member species. Avoid provocation. Humanity operates asymmetrically. Assume full-spectrum retaliation in response to even minor offenses. Even this wasn't enough. Some didn't listen. Some had to touch the flame. The cracks in the Empire. The Tharn Collective, an insectoid superhive known for absorbing weaker species through benevolent assimilation, decided to test Earth's resolve. They seeded psychic disruptors in human colonies, attempting to cause sleep loss and neurological damage. It worked. Briefly. Until the Tharn spires started collapsing. 7 of their outposts simply ceased transmitting. Their hive clusters went dark. Their queens? Dead. Human ships were never detected. No debris was found. But once again a message appeared, this time burned into the husk of a Tharn birthing chamber. We do not forget. Earth's retaliations were never public. Never messy. Just effective. That terrified the other species more than open war ever could. The human doctrine. When asked, during a heavily mediated summit, what humanity's official military doctrine was, Earth's Defense Minister, General Elena Kwan, replied, "We win before you know we've declared anything." The silence in the room was heavier than vacuum. No one responded. They didn't dare. She leaned forward and added, "You never understood us. You saw our jokes, our emotions, our hesitation. But you missed the core of who we are." She tapped the table with a finger. We're the species that adapted to kill megafauna with rocks. That crossed oceans with nothing but stars and hope. That survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the void, and still asked, "What's next?" Kwan's voice hardened. "You didn't meet our best. You met our most polite." The broadcast was cut short by council moderators. But the message lived. Across military channels, intelligence reports, and encrypted data hubs, a phrase began circulating. Never meet the real humans. The fall of the first race. The Ural Dominion, the oldest recorded interstellar empire, had once ruled half the galaxy. They saw Earth's rise as a historical error. They broadcast a correction campaign, propaganda, threats, a declaration of ideological purification. They sent a planetary invasion fleet to Dam Astra, a Terran terraforming world near the edge of Ural space. 30 ships. 3 battalions of bioengineered super soldiers. The Ural called it Operation Penance. Terrans called it Tuesday. Within 10 hours the fleet was wiped out. Human orbital cannons turned troop landers into silent sparks before they broke atmosphere. Drones disguised as comets disabled command ships. The few that landed found the population gone, evacuated, and the planet a minefield of false signals, traps, and drones that moved like ghosts. When Ural reinforcements arrived days later, all they found was a shattered colony dome with the words scrawled on it in plasma burns. We were patient. You chose war. The Dominion fell within a Terran month. Not to armies, but to information. Earth unleashed the single most terrifying weapon in the galaxy. Truth. They cracked the Ural's history vaults. Revealed their atrocities. Broadcast their classified experiments. Leaked their secret pacts with banned species. Species revolted. Civil wars ignited. And all Earth did was watch. When the Council begged. Not long after, the Galactic Conclave issued an unprecedented emergency vote. Proposal 4417Z. Offer full Council membership to humanity. Not as probationary members. As core members. Ambassador Chow accepted the offer with a smile. But she added one clause. If you mock us again, we will not negotiate. We will not warn you. We will simply edit the problem. No one dared vote against it. The Empire of Quiet Eyes. By now, Earth's reputation had outgrown its size. Children on distant planets whispered tales of Terran operatives with invisible blades. Alien monarchs recruited human advisors, but always slept with weapons nearby. Interstellar companies paid 10 times more for Terran cybersecurity, knowing no breach would ever be traced. And in the deep black, unregistered ships bearing no flags were said to slip through space lanes with engines that left no trail. Some believed they were Terran warlords. Others said they were peacekeepers. All agreed on one thing. They didn't want to find out. Earth's new diplomacy. The Galactic Council scheduled a new summit, this time on Earth. A subtle show of trust. Or fear. Leaders arrived cautiously. The air was thick with tension. And when Ambassador Chow took the podium in Geneva's orbital chamber, she looked far less cheerful than they remembered. We have one more statement, she said. Not of war. But of clarity. Behind her, the screens lit up. Dozens of slides showed what Earth had done. The intercepted transmissions. The deconstructed weapons. The exposed secrets. Not to brag, but to warn. You mistook patience for weakness, she said. You mistook laughter for submission. That was your error. We are not conquerors. But we are not prey. If you force our hand again, we won't end your species. We'll end your relevance. Remember, we were the joke. And we survived you. The council chamber remained quiet long after Ambassador Chow stepped down. No applause. No protests. Just the muted hum of atmosphere regulators and the collective breath-holding of dozens of species too proud to admit they were afraid. Earth's display hadn't been a threat. It had been a coronation. The era of Terran irrelevance was gone. Now, even silence from Earth was treated as a warning. And for good reason. The day the accord shattered. 3 months after the Geneva summit, a lesser-known species, the Drovians, attempted to test the edges of Earth's new posture. Officially, they claimed it was a miscalculated mining expansion. Unofficially, they planted energy siphons inside the Charon belt, within what Earth now considered a neutral buffer zone. They underestimated Terran satellite coverage. And the reaction time. Within 6 hours, 5 of their orbital stations collapsed. Their internal AI networks were locked in recursive loops that played only one message. You've made a miscalculation. There will be no repetition. No Terran fleet was seen. No soldiers entered Drovian space. Yet the Drovians lost 70% of their deep space capability in a day. They issued a full apology within the week. Earth responded with a single sentence. Noted. Shadows in council halls. The true shift was more insidious. Earth began integrating operatives into other governments, not as spies but as requested advisors. Species that once ridiculed humanity now paid to host them. Terran tacticians sat in strategic planning meetings across 3 sectors. Terran linguists redesigned encryption protocols and 4 more. Terran psychologists gave lectures on resistance dynamics and cultural instability to planetary rulers hoping to suppress rebellion. Ironically, Terran knowledge taught them that suppression never works. One council member, an aged Dordhak noble, was caught muttering, "We didn't just let them in. We invited our own superiors." And by then it was too late. The Whisper War. Reports began surfacing of widespread disappearances. Warlords gone without a trace. Fleet captains vanishing mid-jump. Entire black market trade routes shut down with no visible interference. Only those who truly understood intelligence operations saw the pattern. This wasn't natural. It wasn't random. It was surgical. It was human. The Council's Internal Security Division traced the patterns to an unknown black site located on a drifting asteroid in an uncharted system. When a recon drone breached its outer layer, all it captured was static, except for one final frame. A man in Terran black armor staring into the lens, helmet off, smiling slightly. Behind him, the words etched into the stone wall read, "We clean what you refuse to face." The collapse of the Merchant's Ring. The galaxy's largest non-military coalition, the Garixian Trade Ring, had long relied on economic pressure to control smaller worlds. They issued embargoes, trade lockouts, and supply chain throttling against anyone who resisted their terms. When Earth refused their import tariffs, the Garixian leadership laughed. Within days, those tariffs collapsed under global market shifts orchestrated by human economists, the very same ones who had survived Earth's most brutal capitalist centuries. Then Earth offered alternatives: faster supply chains, AI-managed logistics, and redundant trade paths no other system could match. The Garixian credit value plummeted overnight. Human corporations bought out nearly half the trade ring's infrastructure in the aftermath. No shot fired. No fleet moved. Just numbers. Leverage. Dominance. The unaligned learned to obey. Dozens of unaligned fringe species, pirate kingdoms, anarchist syndicates, AI cults, watched this shift in horror. Many had built their power on the assumption that humans would remain too busy dealing with internal division to act outward. They were wrong. Earth's unity wasn't perfect, but it was engineered. Conflicts were handled, not ignored. Dissenters were absorbed or neutralized. And when unity wasn't natural, humans forged it in fire. A Terran strike ship known only as Spirefall appeared in fringe systems where rogue AI collectives had been harvesting biological matter. After Spirefall visited, no signals ever left those systems again. Even galactic scavengers refused to approach the remnants. The message was spreading. You want chaos? We built from it. You live in shadows? We own the night. The day the galaxy blinked, an unprovoked attack on a human diplomatic shuttle occurred in the Nexari zone, where treaty enforcement had grown lax. The attackers, believed to be rogue synthetic constructs, left no survivors. Or so they thought. 3 days later, every orbital ring over Nexari Prime fell from the sky in synchronized, choreographed freefall. Not one civilian was harmed. Only military structures were vaporized. Only government hubs collapsed. And hovering above the ashes was a human gunship, alone, broadcasting. You forgot we were listening. The Council assembled an emergency tribunal. Earth didn't attend. They didn't need to. Because by then, every major civilization understood the new order. Do not provoke humanity. Do not dismiss them. Do not assume their silence is approval. Whispers from the edge. On the edge of known space, a dying species sent out a signal flare hoping for aid. No council member responded. Not one of the so-called guardians of the old era even acknowledged the message. But Earth did. A Terran relief ship arrived within the week. Not only with supplies, but with hydroengineers, translators, and terraforming drones. The species, known as the Valenthri, swore allegiance to Earth the moment they stabilized. Not because they were forced. Because they were the only ones who had come. Across the galaxy, more species followed. Earth wasn't just a threat anymore. It was becoming something else. Something more dangerous. Something inevitable. The Valenthri were only the beginning. Their alliance with Earth opened floodgates the Galactic Council had long believed sealed. Within cycles, species once deemed irrelevant, or too scattered to matter, began to form around a new gravitational center, Terra. But Earth didn't behave like the old empires. They didn't build thrones. They built infrastructure. They didn't demand loyalty. They inspired it. And that terrified the old powers more than any weapon ever forged. The fracture of the old guard. The Zatul Empire, one of the founding members of the Council and proud keepers of the Line of Stability, attempted a blockade of the newly Terran-aligned Valenthri system. They arrived with 37 cruisers and a command dreadnought. They expected resistance. They didn't expect emptiness. Because Earth had moved the entire Valenthri population off-world in under 12 hours, without so much as a diplomatic notice. Then Earth let them look for them. For 3 days, Zotl ships scanned every system within jump range, broadcasting threats and ultimatums. No answer. No sign of hostiles. Just silence. And then, at precisely 0400 Standard Galactic, every ship in the Zotl fleet powered down simultaneously. No explosions. No hull breaches. Just off. One broadcast cut through the dead comms. We will not waste energy teaching you this lesson again. The Zotl Empire ceased all military operations the next day. What we learned in our struggles. Humanity had always known it was underestimated. We were late to spaceflight. Late to interstellar diplomacy. Late to AI integration. But we understood conflict like no other. Because we had lived through it, generation after generation. Civil war, ideological collapse, extinction brushes, climate devastation, pandemics, tyrants, and revolutions. Where others feared fire, we had danced in it. Our strength wasn't in numbers. It wasn't in ships or metal or AI. It was in will. It was the quiet fury in engineers who built faster-than-light systems after decades of being told it was impossible. It was the calm of soldiers who had seen worse than death and kept moving. It was in our capacity to evolve under pressure, even when the universe spat in our face. The final assembly. A universal gathering was called. Not by the Council, but by Earth. Not as a demand. Not as a threat. Just a notification. No council chamber. No old traditions. Instead, in orbit above Jupiter, neutral, open sky, a temporary station was constructed. 27 species arrived. 18 of them had once mocked Earth's ascent. Only 5 remained allied to the crumbling council. And yet they came. Not to fight, but to listen. Ambassador Chow returned. No grand introduction this time. No firebrand speech. He simply held up a data slate and spoke. We're not here to rule. But we will not be ruled. You've asked who we are. You've asked what we want. He tapped the slate. The station screens lit with imagery, humanity's past. The wars. The beauty. The pain. The triumph. Cities rising after flood. Families sharing meals and shelters. Space stations built by a dozen nations after a century of war. We want peace. But not the kind you enforce with silence. Not the kind that benefits the few while the rest starve. We want peace built from respect. He looked across the chamber. And when we're disrespected, you've seen what we build then. Not a word followed. No applause. No protests. Just heads bowed. Even the proudest among them understood. This wasn't diplomacy anymore. This was evolution. We were the joke. They used to laugh at us. At our chaos. Our contradictions. Our short lives. Our obsession with art and conflict and freedom in equal breath. But the joke was always on them. Because we learned from every insult. We grew stronger in every shadow they shoved us into. And when they finally saw us, when they really saw us, it wasn't with laughter. It was with awe. The day the galaxy stood still. A single message was sent from the new Terra Nexus to all civilizations, broadcast on all frequencies, translatable across all species. We are Earth. We are human. You will not like everything we do. You may not always understand us. But if you stand beside us, we will never abandon you. If you stand against us, we will never forget. Choose well. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And for once, the galaxy listened. Because it finally understood something humanity had known all along. Respect is not given. It is earned, through fire, failure, and the refusal to fall. And this is just the beginning. Human fleets patrol not as tyrants, but as guardians. Human voices shape not as manipulators, but as mediators. Human resolve is no longer the punchline of the galaxy's joke. It is its anchor. And as the stars shift and old empires fade, new stories rise, where humanity leads not by dominance but by daring. And if this story stirred something in you, if it made you pause, made you look up, made you remember what we're capable of, then join us. Because the future is vast, and the stars have only begun to whisper our name. Subscribe to the Void Narratives. Stories like this are only the beginning. Together, let's remind the galaxy, humanity was never the joke. We were the punchline to history's arrogance.